Welcome to Custom Home Care's training, Caring for LGBTQ Seniors. Hi, I'm your host, Jennifer Avila, Executive Director at Custom Home Care. I'm very proud to be presenting to you today, Caring for LGBTQ Seniors. Custom Home Care cares for clients, and we have employees who come from a rainbow of diverse backgrounds and life experiences. We have a philosophy of inclusion, dignity, and respect for all of our clients and caregivers. Today, we hope to bring you some information and some insight, including some direct experience on serving the needs of the LGBTQ senior. We're going to talk a little bit about an overview of the LGBTQ client, including some definitions and language so we can all speak a common language. We're going to talk about some challenges and discrimination that the LGBTQ client may have experienced in their lifetime. We're going to discuss cultural barriers and how best to serve the LGBTQ client. First, let's talk about some definitions. LGBTQ is an acronym that stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and queer or questioning. Sexual orientation can be complicated. Some experts say that there are over 40 terms that can be used to define someone's sexual identification. We're going to talk about some of the most common. Women who are attracted to other women are typically referred to as lesbian. Men who are attracted to men are referred to as gay. Bisexual are typically people who are attracted to either men or women. And pansexual is someone who is attracted to someone regardless of that person's gender identity or gender. Queer is a broad term that's used by the LGBT community to cover the spectrum of sexual orientation and gender identity. It used to be a judgmental term, but it's been reclaimed by the LGBTQ community. This term should not be used by someone unless they give you permission to do so. Questioning is someone who maybe is still uncovering and identifying their gender identity or their sexual orientation. And straight is typically referred to as a person who is attracted to members of the opposite sex. Many LGBTQ seniors have a same-sex spouse or partner. About 1 in 20 or 4.5% of people living in the United States today identify as being LGBTQ. These numbers have been increasing as our culture changes and as people feel more comfortable coming out in society and safer. For example, the Supreme Court has ruled on marriage equality, which is now law in the United States. Gays can safely and openly serve in the United States military. These cultural changes have brought about more acceptance and a safer environment for people to be out and with their sexual orientation. Gender identity is completely different from sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is about who you love or who you're attracted to. But gender identity describes how someone feels about their gender or the sex that they were assigned at birth. Someone whose birth sex and gender identity are the same is considered cisgender. So someone who was born a woman and identifies as a woman and feels like a woman is considered cisgender. Conversely, someone who was born a certain gender but identifies and feels differently from that gender is considered transgender. So for example, a transgender woman is someone who was born as a boy with boy parts, but inside feels like a woman, identifies as a woman. Sometimes transgendered women are born as a man, but they will feel more comfortable wearing women's clothing or doing activities that are more typically thought as feminine, maybe dancing, sewing. A cisgendered woman might want to change her name to a female name and might want to live her life as a woman. She might want people to call her she or her. She feels like a woman inside, even though the sex assigned to her at birth is different than how she identifies. Some transgendered people decide to live their lives in a way that matches the gender that they feel inside, not necessarily the gender that they were assigned at birth. Sometimes they go through surgery so that their physical body matches their identity inside and how they feel about themselves. We've had some celebrities recently who have brought a lot of notice and light to the subject of transgendered identity. Chaz Bono is Sonny and Cher's son, who was born a woman, and her name was Chastity, and she identified as a male and has changed her identity and sexuality to male. And Caitlyn Jenner is probably one of the most notable transgender women. She started life and was a gold medal Olympian named Bruce Jenner, and recently came out as a transgendered woman and is now living her life as a female. Transgendered seniors may feel uncomfortable receiving care. They may have a distrust with medical professionals. They may not open up to us right away. I worked in a retirement community where there was a man who identified as a man and was born a man, but he liked to wear a lot of feminine accessories, clothing, jewelry that were more typically female or that female attributed. And he wore his hair in a very feminine style as well. He would get upset when people would refer to him as she or Mrs. And we really had to educate our staff that even though he preferred to wear women's accessories and that made him feel comfortable, he did still identify as male. So sexual identity and gender identity is not so black and white. In fact, studies now show that gender identity and sexual orientation are not so simple as gay or straight, male or female, but that our gender identity and our sexual orientation can fall anywhere along a continuum. If you don't know how someone identifies, just ask. And an easy way to do that, which shows that you understand our transgendered brothers and sisters, is just asking them, what are your pronouns? And that is showing them that you understand that it's okay to ask, how do they prefer to be called? He, she, they, their, and that can get you started on the right foot with your client or with anyone who might be transgendered. LGBTQ seniors have had to fight, many of them their entire lives, for equality and rights. It has not been all rainbows and pride parades. LGBTQ seniors have likely lived through a time when they could be fired from their job for being gay. Police used to raid gay bars, publish names in the newspapers of people who were arrested at gay bars. And then they would get fired for being gay when their employer saw their name in the newspaper. We have come a long way towards ending LGBTQ discrimination, but we have a long way to go. And many seniors lived in a time when being gay and being out was dangerous. Statistically, the LGBT community has a higher suicide rate than the overall population. They're much more likely to experience hate crimes and or bullying. Prior to marriage equality, the gay community had been prohibited from getting medical information on their life partners or spouses. they were not able to cover their life partners on their medical insurance policies, and just did not have equal status in the law. The LGBTQ community statistically has had more challenges with healthcare, especially in more rural areas. And many times they're suspicious of healthcare professionals or do not want to expose their life choices or their lifestyle and their identity to medical professionals. Many of our LGBTQ seniors have had broken relationships with families. Their families may not have understood their choices, and in order to live a lifestyle that was honest and open, they had to sever ties with their families. So they may not have extended family as a source of support. Many also may have chosen not to have children. Instead, they might have a chosen family, friends that they surround themselves with that help provide support. It's important for us as caregivers to understand these important relationships. Research shows that many LGBTQ seniors go back into the closet, especially when they move into a retirement community or an assisted living facility. About 80% of retirement communities or CCRCs in the United States are religious based. And many LGBTQ seniors don't feel like they're able to express their identity due to these religious constrictions. In fact, there was an example in a bordering suburb of Chicago just a few years ago of a senior who was a lesbian, and she was not only verbally abused, but also physically abused by other residents at the retirement community. She filed a lawsuit against the retirement community and against those seniors who were abusing her. And this is a perfect example of why seniors choose to stay closeted as they age, as to try to prevent those types of discriminatory and sometimes abusive and dangerous actions against others. It's not just healthcare providers, but many times it's peers that provide the most discriminatory behaviors against LGBTQ seniors. Something we also need to think about as healthcare providers and caregivers is how our own background and how our own culture might affect how we feel about LGBTQ seniors. In fact, I was doing a training such as this a few years ago, and someone raised their hand and said, I come from a different country and a different culture, and we don't have any gay people in my country. And everyone in the room kind of laughed a little bit because most people know that there are gay, lesbian, transsexual, transgendered, bisexual, and queer people all over the world in every culture. But cultures vary as to how accepting and how comfortable seniors may be, or people in general may be coming out as LGBTQ. Some examples also are just in the Hispanic culture. My husband is from Mexico, and if you speak Spanish or know much Spanish, every single noun in the Spanish language is either given a masculine or a feminine, is either masculine or feminine. There's no in between. There's no other, there's no neutral noun. Everything's either masculine or feminine. So some languages and some cultures are by their language and can exclude people who don't fit those molds and who don't feel totally masculine or totally feminine, someone who falls along that continuum. We as healthcare professionals have to first identify, does our background or culture affect how we feel about LGBTQ people? And how do we break through those barriers? Compassionate care is the answer. We may not fully understand their background and their story, but we can show respect and compassionate care to our clients, their life partner or spouse, and their family. We have to first create an environment that allows for open discussion about our clients' needs. We have to build trust with our client and their chosen family or their actual family. We have to be very sensitive to their needs and things like the language that we use. We have to understand the importance and the power of the words that we use, and to make sure that the words we use and the way in which we deliver care is respectful and is done in a way that is sensitive to the needs of the LGBTQ client. We may also have to take extra measures to provide privacy for the LGBTQ client. That could be physical privacy, or it could be emotional privacy as well. And conversely, your client may share things with you that they don't want shared with their family or their friends. So confidentiality is essential. If our client wants us to keep things confidential from others, that things that they've shared with us, we have to respect that and do so. And as always, our CHC nurse managers, our director of nursing, and of course me, our executive director, we are all available to help you through this journey of compassionate, dignified care for our LGBTQ clients. Custom Home Care is dedicated to ensuring that care at home is safe and welcoming for all. Thank you so much for your time, and happy Pride.